2021, and the court entered an emergency order prohibiting the mother from picking up the children because of allegations of her experiencing a mental health crisis and not being stable and putting the children potentially at risk. So I granted that relief Friday of last week, and we had a hearing scheduled for yesterday, which was the earliest available time, and some of the attorneys could not be here. So it was moved till today, Tuesday, the following day. And we're continuing the hearing virtually using Zoom, which I think we've had most all of our hearings on Zoom throughout the course of the case. Let's see. The attorney for defects, Mr. Skowronek, is here. The children's foster parents of one or both children previously in the case, and I don't know whether you're being used for an emergency placement or what, but the Chapmans are here. The case manager, Ms. Wilcox, is here. Dad, Brian, dad of Lyra, and stepdad of Yaris, Brian Pope, is here. Ms. Ishmael is a supervisor in defects, or I think one of the administrators. And maternal grandparents, Mr. and Ms. Robinson, are here. The attorney for the mother, Ms. Evans Battle, is here. Mr. Pope, I don't think you had a lawyer, did you?
No, I had one, but I let him go because it didn't make any sense.
Okay, that's fine. I just making sure. And I just let in Ms. Dusant, which is a grandparent, and Ms. Henley Parks, another administrator I'm letting in. So let me figure out who I need to swear in. Mr. Skowronek,
Your Honor.
are you ready to proceed?
I am.
You may.
All right, Your Honor, I'm going to call Ms. Chapman first. So Ms. Chapman, if you want to mute your microphone. And Ms. Chapman, Your Honor, if I can lead her to try to get through some of the stuff a little bit real quick, then I'd appreciate that as far as sort of the biographical and whatever information.
Does anybody, well, I guess Ms. Evans Battle may object to the relief that I granted Friday, but does anybody besides Ms. Evans Battle object to the relief I granted staying in place?
No,
No
sir.
objection for me.
Ms. Evans Battle, you're going to stand mute?
I object, of course, on behalf of my client, and I'm trying to figure out the status of what the department is actually asking for. Based on their email, it appeared that they were just, the only thing that they were asking for was for her not to be able to remove the children. And I guess my question is that correct? Is that the only thing that the department is asking for at this time?
For today, yes. The department was supposed to give me a legal action request to go back to court and file a motion for modification of the aftercare. We haven't gotten to that point. We wanted to ensure that the children remained safe and remained in the home with Mr. Pope, and that the mother could not remove them from either school or from the home of Mr. Pope. So that's all we were asking for purposes of today's hearing.
And then you're anticipating filing a modification with notice to the parties?
I anticipate filing a motion to modify the aftercare. Yes, Your Honor, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
I would think that just on behalf of my client, I think it would be appropriate for us to at least hear testimony as to what, my biggest question, I guess, is what would even make them think that she was going to remove the child. So there would have to be some testimony about her that would indicate she was going to remove the child, because I don't think that that's what her position is.
Well, the motion, the emergency motion mentioned an incident in Florida where the children ended up being taken by Florida Family and Children's Services because mom had some kind of psychotic episode. And is Ms. Chapman familiar with that, Mr. Skowronek?
No, Your Honor, I don't think so. She's had some phone conversations and text messages with the mother wherein Ms. Chapman had some serious concerns about the mother's mental state. And then Ms. Wilcox was the individual who would have testified as to the mother having been hospitalized in Florida after they abandoned the car, Yaris and the mother being found in Florida, and that the department had to take custody of the child. Well, Florida actually ended up taking the child to the Georgia border, where Georgia defects picked the child back up and brought the child back to Mr. Pope.
Defects?
No,
We brought him.
No, don't interrupt, please. If that was a mistake, we'll get it fixed down the road, okay? Please don't interrupt. I just let Ava Duzon in. I just noticed she was in the waiting room, and she's another family member who's been at a number of the hearings. Are you anybody anticipating calling her as a witness? She's not under oath because she just got here. Okay. Just remember, folks, please don't cut in and start talking unless I've recognized you first. Go ahead with your questioning of Ms. Chapman, but let's try to. I'm fine with you leading as long as you were getting preliminary matters out. Unless if somebody objects, they can object, but I don't think there's any dispute about some of this.
So Ms. Chapman, you were the former foster mother, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are familiar with the mother of those children, Ms. Janaz Melendez-Pope?
Yes, sir.
And do you continue, after the children were returned back to the custody of the mother and father back in June of this year, have you continued to have contact with the mother, Ms. Pope?
She reached out to me a few days ago. I would send text message reminders of doctor's appointments to both Ms. Pope and to Paula Robinson, because I was still the contact. We changed it, but they were still sending those to me, so I would forward those. But there was no response from Janaj until she reached out.
So that wasn't my question. My question was, is you've had contact with Ms. Pope after the children that were returned back to you, correct?
A couple days ago, yes.
Okay. And that was on or about, I believe, October 9th of this year when you received a phone call from Ms. Pope?
It started with text, but it was technically the 8th, but we spoke on the 9th.
Okay. So it was a combination of text messages and phone calls between you and Ms. Pope?
Yes, sir.
All right. And just I just want to focus on, and during those text messages and phone calls that you had with Ms. Pope, and did you have concerns about the mother, Ms. Pope's mental status?
Yes.
Okay. And what specifically did she tell you, talk to you about, state or whatever, that caused you to have concerns about Ms. Pope's mental status?
She did tell me about the Florida incident, walking along the highway, and
okay, so let me assume the judge doesn't know anything about the Florida incident. What did the mother tell you about what happened in Florida?
From what she told me, she requested to take Yaris to Florida after Yaris had disclosed that she was feeling suicidal to herself and to Paula, or Miss Robinson, sorry. So according to Janelle, she said that after that was disclosed to her and to Miss Robinson, she asked to take Yaris to Florida, which was approved. She said they went down there, they had a good time. They were on their way to the resort. I'm assuming that's where they were staying when she ran out of gas.
Let me just stop you there because I want to ask you a couple of questions about that before we get to Garfield. All right. So you were saying that Ms. Pope, the mother, let's try to refer to her as the mother so that we're consistent.
Okay.
The mother of the children told you that Yaris was suicidal?
She said that Yaris had disclosed to both her and to Miss Robinson that she was feeling suicidal and wanted to kill herself because she was stressed out by other family members.
And then did Ms. Pope indicated that she was going to be taking Yaris to Florida? Did she ever give you a reason as to why she was taking Yaris to Florida?
She did not. The way she told it to me, I assumed based on the way she said it that it was because Yaris had disclosed this, like maybe this was I'm taking her to feel better kind of thing. She didn't give an actual reason other than she got an approval from DFACS to do so.
So then you said that at some point in time, Ms. Pope told you either by text or phone that she was at the resort. What did that, I mean, do you know where they were in Florida, where this resort was?
No, she said that they were on their way to the resort when the car had broken down. I want to say she mentioned Orlando, but I can't promise but I feel like Orlando was mentioned, but I cannot confirm that for sure.
During your conversations with the mother, did she ever report to you that she was taking Yaris to Florida to visit a grandmother who was ill?
No, she did not tell me that.
Okay. All right. Now, then going on to when you got contacted by Ms. Pope, the mother, about her car having broken down, what did she tell you about that?
That she had ran out of gas, that she was she had been arguing with Mr. Pope on the phone, or she just said she'd been arguing with Mr. Pope, and that she wasn't paying attention to her dashboard, and they ran out of gas on I-4 around, I think she said it was around 1 a.m.
1 a.m. in the morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And during that conversation, did Ms. Pope ever tell you, the mother ever tell you that Mr. Pope was with her and Yaris in Florida in the car?
She mentioned him as far as arguing with him, but she didn't say that he was there with them. She didn't lead me to believe that he was there with them. She made it sound as if it was just her and Yaris.
Okay. All right. So what did she tell you, if anything, further about the incident in Florida where the car broke down?
That they had walked from the car to a toll booth so that they could charge their phones because their phones had died apparently. And that a correctional officer, I think she said, like pulled up a ways ahead of them. So she walked up to the correctional officer to, I guess, get assistance. And as she walked up, he pulled a gun on her. And again, this is no confirmation, but this is just what she had told me, that he had pulled a gun on her, but that it was, I think she said, far enough away that Yaris shouldn't have seen it. Before that, she said that she was dehydrated. She needed water. She wasn't feeling well because she was having a miscarriage. She either passed out or fell down. Honestly, she was talking very fast, so some of it was hard to decipher, but she either fell down or passed out. And Yaris had to spit in her mouth and promethazine. He said the name of the drug, but I'm not familiar with it, so I'm not sure what drug it was, but it was promethazine something. But that Yaris had to spit in her mouth and place the pill in her mouth to get her to swallow that. She said she was on that medication for pain for the miscarriage that she was having.
Okay. Now this was a phone call that you got from from the mother, Ms. Pope, at 1 in the morning, correct?
She tried calling. I didn't answer because I didn't recognize the number because she changed it. But based on the fact that she texted at the same time in a group chat with myself and Miss Robinson, I asked her if it was her, and she said yes, it was. And it was about midnight. So I set up a time to talk with her the next day because I told her it's midnight. I'm on vacation. I cannot speak to you right now. We can schedule a time to talk where it was convenient for both of us. So we spoke the next day, later in the evening.
And when you spoke to Ms. Pope, the mother, did she report to you that she had been hospitalized?
Yes, she said that she called it something else. Like, I guess Florida, it's basically a 1013, whatever Florida calls it. I don't remember what she called that, but she said it's basically Georgia's version of a 1013. So that she was put in the back of a police car. She said they gave her another medication, Geodone. I think she said they gave her like 4 rounds of that, so she didn't wake up until Thursday or Friday, according to her.
Okay. Now, during your conversations and/or text messages with Ms. Pope, the mother, did she report to you about wanting to give either Yaris and/or Lyra to you for you to adopt either or both children?
She requested that Josh and I adopt Yaris. She did specifically just talk about Yaris. She said, Lyra was with Mr. Pope, but that because Yaris is not his biological child, she was calling in Yaris's biological father, and that she wanted Josh and I to adopt Yaris.
And did Ms. Pope, the mother, give you any reason as to why she, at this point, sort of out of the blue, wanted you to adopt that child?
She said basically because Yaris was telling lies about her, that she was being manipulated by Mr. Pope and Miss Duzant. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name correctly, but she was stating that Yaris was being manipulated by Mr. Pope and Miss Duzant to tell lies about the mother, and therefore she was done and wanted us to adopt. That way she'd still know Yaris was okay and taken care of, but that she was done.
During your conversations, either by phone or text message during this roughly October 8th through October 9th timeframe that we're talking about here, did Ms. Pope, the mother, make any statements to you about there being domestic violence between her and Mr. Pope?
Yes, multiple incidents were mentioned.
What did she allege or claim happened?
Specifically with new allegations of the miscarriage that she stated she was having, she stated was from Mr. Pope kicking her in the stomach. once she was back in Georgia, she she was speaking very fast, so trying to keep some of it straight was difficult. Either behind a hotel or behind a Cracker Barrel. She stated that they had met there, I think, for her to get back her stuff that was taken in Florida, that he dragged her by the neck and pulled a gun on her, and left marks on her body, but she didn't specify as to where. And that then she started mentioning incidents from the past, some of which she had already told me about, and then some that were from the past but still new, as far as him busting her head open, shooting a gun at her behind, I think, Home Depot. And there was another miscarriage incident, or supposed miscarriage incident, in California, I think. So she just kind of reiterated some of the past incidents and then mentioned the newer ones in relation to what's going on now.
Again, during this time frame that we're talking about, this October 8th, October 9th time frame, when you were texting and phone calls and whatever with Ms. Pope, did you make or take screenshots of text messages between yourself and Ms. Pope?
Yes, sir. I took screenshots and sent them to DFAX.
Did you also record some of the phone calls as well?
Yes, both the one on October 9th, that was about 49 minutes long. That one was recorded. And then the following day, as we were leaving from vacation, it was, I want to say, 5-ish minutes. I recorded that phone conversation as well.
What date did you say that? October 9?
The very long conversation was October 9th, and then the shorter one was October 10th.
Okay, thank you.
And then during your conversations and text messages with the mother, Ms. Pope, did she also make claims that Ms. Stacy Duzant had attacked her in some manner?
Yes, not a recent incident, but she had reiterated a past incident of, I think, how Lyra originally came into care was the day after she alleged Mr. Pope had hit her in the head, that Ms. Duzant pistol whipped her with a gun.
Now, did you have any evidence or any claims from Ms. Duzant, Ms. Pope, the mother, that she and Ms. Duzant had an altercation here in the recent past, like around the beginning of October, end of September of this year?
A physical altercation or a verbal?
Either one.
I won't say she didn't say anything about physical. That one's not coming to mind. Like I said, it was a very long conversation. So keeping some of it straight was very difficult. I don't recall her saying a physical incident, a new one. I'd have to honestly go back and listen to the call again to say yes or no to that. But off the top of my head, I do not recall that.
That's fine. Did you have a conversation with Ms. Wilcox, the case manager, where you had expressed to her that you were concerned that Ms. Pope, the mother, was off of her medications?
Yeah, I can't remember if I specifically said that, but we definitely had a conversation about concerns of the mother's mental health and whether or not she, I don't know what medication she is on or is not on, but it did not appear that she was medicated. Okay.
So you did express to Ms. Wilcox concerns about Ms. Pope, the mother, not being on her medication?
Yes.
Okay. And what have you known Ms. Pope when she is in fact on her medications?
I believe so. Again, I don't watch her take her meds, but I've definitely known her in 2 different capacities, behavior-wise. So I would assume she was on meds.
And how would you describe her behavior as to the conversations that you had with her on October 8th, October 9th, that time frame, to when you may have previously? Was there a change in her behavior that you observed or heard or that you noticed?
She was very much more erratic's not the right exact word, but she was very, like, she could not slow down. Like, she was going a mile a minute. She was very, like, all over the place, bouncing around, like pinning her down to, like, okay, to just get a storyline was because she was just all over the place and just lots of cursing, lots of like they're gonna regret messing with me kind of thing. So just a lot of outlandish, like, just over the top. Yeah.
All right. So the phrase I've heard used before to kind of describe that would be somebody being hyperverbal, where they're talking a mile a minute. Would that be what you observed?
Yes, I got like 20 words in that entire 50-minute conversation. So
And then you also were talking about her kind of going off on different, what I've heard described as having tangential thoughts, where they'll go off on a tangent and just basically go off at a 90-degree angle from what they were talking about. Would that accurately describe what you observed with Ms. Pope, the mother, when you were talking and texting with her?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any evidence that Ms. Pope provide you any evidence that would support her contentions or claims that Mr. Pope, had kicked her or had assaulted her? Did she send you any pictures of any injuries or anything like that?
No, sir. She didn't. I did urge her, if she had the evidence, she should submit it multiple times, but she did not show me any evidence at any point, at any time during having known her.
During any of this time, did you ask to speak to Yaris?
Not when I was on the phone with Janaj, Mrs. Pope, the mother, because my understanding was Yaris was not there. Yaris texted me from Miss Robinson's cell phone before those conversations with Miss Pope, but Yaris and I didn't actually speak on the phone. We exchanged a couple text messages where she told me her mom was not in the right mental state and that she might need to come back into foster care. And then when I did call, because I was at a doctor's appointment, when I did call, I spoke with Miss Robinson, and she stated that mom was having a mental breakdown, but I did not actually speak to Yaris.
Okay. All right. Your Honor, I think that's all I have for Ms. Chapman.
Anybody have any questions for the witness?
I do, Judge, just a couple of questions. She was able to give you a story about what happened. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you indicated when Mr. Skowronek asked you about something generalized random thoughts, you indicated that they were, but she was able to tell you about her getting permission and taking Yaris, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And she gave you the reason why.
Excuse me, answer yes or no, please. Not uh-huh or uh-uh.
Yes.
And she was able to tell you the reason why she was doing that, as to Yaris' disclosure to her, correct?
That was my assumption. She did not actually tell me why they were going to Florida. I assumed, because she had just told me about the disclosure, that was one, but she did not say it was the reason.
All right then. And then she told you about what happened with the reason why she ended up hospitalized.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And have you seen her when she's been excited about, or talked to her when she's been excited about other things?
Yes. I'm trying to think of a time where she was like that. It's more of just a neutralness when we've talked in the past.
Okay. So there hasn't been other times when she's just been really very talkative that you can compare this to?
Not in this same. Sorry, there was background noise there. I wasn't sure if someone was actually speaking. Sorry. Not in the same way. When she first called us to take the girls October or September of last year, she was not her normal self then, but it wasn't this overly excited, overly talkative. It was more of a worried, like very, again, not erratic, but just very a concerned talk of she was trying to keep her babies safe. So it was a lot of, like, I need help, but not a tangent flow like this one was. It was
okay.
It was
so
different.
The last time when she was having a mental status concern, her concern was for the children.
Yes,
and you're saying this time you didn't feel as if her concern was for the children.
she was concerned for the children, but it was the prior time she was concerned with both herself and the children. This time she was, you know, it was more of a concern for the kid, like wanting Yaris to be safe, but just not wanting to play a part in being involved, I guess.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Miss Chapman, was Yaris in the mother's care during this phone call with you?
Not to my knowledge. My understanding was that Yaris had been taken from Florida by DFACS and returned to either Mr. and Mrs. Robinson or Mr. Pope. I don't know where she was actually put, but my understanding was that Mrs. Pope, the mother, was actually on the road during our conversations. I think she was in Arizona during one of them, but she was without either child during our conversation.
Okay. And I believe you've had some contact with Yaris since she and her sister left your home, but have you had any contact with Yaris in the past month?
Other than her texting, was that Friday? I think it was Friday, October 5th is when she texted me from Miss Robinson's phone stating that her mother was not in the right mental state and that she might need to come back into care, and she was checking to see if we had kids or not. And then like I said, I spoke with Miss Robinson on the phone, but not to Yaris verbally.
Okay. But when you say she, that was Yaris that was sent that text message to you, and you were corresponding back and forth via text with Yaris?
Yes, we exchanged, I think, 2 or 3 messages where she was just stating that she might need to come into care and just checking to see if our home was available. And then I called and spoke with Miss Robinson.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any redirect?
No.
Call your next witness.
Ms. Wilcox. And these children were returned to the custody of Mr. Pope as to Lyra, and as to Ms. Melendez Pope, the mother, as to both Lyra and Yaris back in June of this year, correct?
Correct.
And they were returned back into the home under an aftercare order. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And did you recently have a contact from the mother, Ms. Melendez Pope, of the children back on or about September 23rd of this year, where the mother called you from an anonymous number?
It was from, yes, correct.
Okay. And tell the court what the mother was asking you about at that time.
Did she have permission to take the children out of state?
Okay. And was that as to both children or just as to one child?
Both.
Okay. And did the mother tell you what the reason she wanted to take the children out of state was?
Her grandmother was ill.
And did she tell you where she was going to take the children and to what state?
Florida.
Did she tell you what city?
Don't recall.
Okay.
She told me the city. She wanted to take them.
Did you report to the mother that there was nothing in the aftercare order that prohibited her from taking the children out of the state?
Not that day.
Okay. When did you tell her that?
That Monday, which I believe is the 25th.
The 21st?
25th, I believe.
Okay.
It was
I'm
that
sorry.
Monday.
I couldn't hear you. Okay. All right. And during, so on the 23rd and the 25th, around that time frame where the mother was asking about whether she could take the children out of state, and you responded back to her, did she ever tell you anything about Yaris being suicidal or having any kind of suicidal ideations?
No.
Okay. The only explanation or the only reason that she gave you as wanting to take the children out of the state was to visit a relative that was ill.
Yes.
Now, did you then, a couple of days after the 25th of September of this year, receive a call from Ms. Melendez Pope, the mother, on or about September 27th at about 1:30 in the morning?
Correct. Yes.
Tell the court about that phone call that you received from the mother.
Okay, so I received a phone call from Mrs. Pope at 1:23 in the morning. She was talking fast. I'm sorry, this is Miss Pope calling me over and over again. She was very erratic all over the place. She was yelling, cursing. She was cursing me out, basically making allegations against Mr. Pope. She was informing me that she wants the kids back in defects custody. She was speaking about, it was a lot. It was a lot. It started at 1:23 and it lasted all morning, all day. She brought up the old case. She brought up being abused. She brought up putting the kids back in care. She brought up meeting me at the defects office. And she would hang up, call back, hang up, call back.
Okay, let me stop you right there, okay? So let me go back. You said one of the things that she was making was allegations against Mr. Pope. What was she claiming that Mr. Pope did?
That he had beat her up, that she didn't want Yaris with her. She brought up that he wasn't her biological father. That he was smoking weed, that he really didn't have a job or wasn't employed. Those are some of the things that she was referring to.
Okay, so let me ask you, you heard Ms. Chapman's testimony about mom making allegations that Mr. Pope kicked her in the stomach, causing her to have a miscarriage. Did she make that claim to you?
No.
Okay. During your conversations with Ms. Pope, did she indicate to you as to whether or not she and your let me before I get to that. When Ms. Pope, the mother, called you, did she tell you as to which child, if or both, she had with her in Florida?
Yaris?
Okay. So she did not take Lyra?
No.
Okay. And did she tell you as to whether Mr. Pope was with Yaris and Ms. Pope in Florida?
Repeat the question, please.
Did Ms. Pope, the mother, tell you that Mr. Pope had accompanied them to Florida?
Not at that time. No.
Did she at some point in time tell you that Mr. Pope had come with them to Florida?
Since then, yes.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm sorry. No.
All right, so I'm confused. Did Ms. Pope ever report to you that Mr. Pope had gone with her and Yaris to Florida?
No.
Okay. Did you, during the time that you found, how did you find out that, well, let me strike that and I'll go back to that in a minute. During this time, after you had had this initial phone conversation, you said that there were a number of conversations and phone calls that kind of went on through the day. Did you contact Mr. Pope?
Yes.
All right. And did you ask Mr. Pope to whether or not he had accompanied Ms. Pope and Yaris to Florida?
No.
Did he tell you where he was?
Yes.
And where was that?
At home with Lyra.
Okay. All right. As a result of these phone calls that you had, and did you also have some text messages with Ms. Pope, the mother?
Yes.
Did you make a report to law enforcement here in Georgia and to law enforcement in Florida to conduct a welfare check as to the mother and Lyra?
Yes.
Was law enforcement subsequently able to locate the mother and Lyra?
Law enforcement was able to locate the vehicle at certain times that
Okay,
mother was driving.
all right. And that was that through their, I guess it's a license plate reader system or something along those lines?
Yes, he told me it was called Flock, a camera system.
And where was the vehicle initially located?
It was first located in, excuse me if I say this word wrong, but out Seminole County. It's spelled Altamonte, Springs, Florida.
Altamont Springs, Florida? Okay. And when did you get notice that the mother's vehicle had been located in that city?
I was notified 9/27. It was around that morning.
Okay. All right. During these conversations that you had with Ms. Pope, either by text or phone, did you ever ask to speak to Yaris?
Yes,
And what was the mother's response to that?
she told me she was right here, would not let me speak to her.
Did she give you a reason as to why she wouldn't let you speak to Yaris?
She kept telling me she was fine.
All right. You said there were a number of phone calls that you had with Ms. Pope on the 27th, beginning at the 1:23 in the morning that you were talking about. Roughly how many phone calls would you say that you received from Ms. Pope on that particular day?
Roughly phone call, are we including text or just phone calls?
You tell me, either one.
Well over, I'd say 25, and well over 25,
Phone calls?
and text.
Okay. All right. So that's both of those combined.
That's just that day, yes, the 27th.
All right. And then at some point in time, were you notified on or about this 28th of September that the mother and the child had been found in Orlando, Florida?
Yes,
And who notified you of that?
Mr. Pope and Mr. and Mrs. Robinson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Pope, and who was the second?
Brian Pope and Jesse and Paula Robinson.
All right. And what did Mr. Pope report to you about where the mother and Yaris had been found on the 28th of September of this year?
They were located on the highway.
All right. And what else, if anything, was disclosed to you about that by Mr. Pope?
Yaris thought that her mom was dying. Yaris had contacted Mr. and Mrs. Robinson because her mother was on the ground flailing and she thought that her mother was dying.
Yeah. Yaris called Ms. Robinson and Mr. Pope?
Called the grandparents, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson.
Okay. And whose car did Ms. Pope take to go to Florida?
Mr. and Mrs. Robinson.
Did you receive information from any source that the mother may have damaged the vehicle of Mr. and Ms. Robinson while they were in Florida?
I received that information from Mr. and Mrs. Robinson.
And what did they report to you about the vehicle?
That mom had sliced up the seats and the ceiling of the car.
I was
I'm
going to
sorry.
object. Mr. and Mrs. Robinson are here, and I was objecting to the continued testimony of Ms. Wilcox as to what they said.
It's an emergency hearing, so it's overruled. Hearsay is admissible.
Go ahead and repeat what you said about what the Robinsons reported to you about the car, if you would, Ms. Wilcox.
That she had abandoned the car, and when they found the car, it was ripped up. She had sliced up the seats and the ceiling of the car.
Did Mr. and Ms. Robinson report to you that the car had not been in that condition before the mother had taken it?
No, they didn't report that it wasn't like that. No.
All right. Did you at some point in time learn that the mother had been hospitalized at, and I want to say it's Dr. Phillips Hospital in Orlando, Florida?
Yes,
All right. What tell the court about that? Who notified you that the mother had been hospitalized in Orlando?
Mr. and Mrs. Robinson. Mrs. Robinson had texted me the hospital information, the officer that was on the scene, and the card to the defects worker in Florida.
And what, if anything, did they, Ms. Robinson, report to you about why the mother had been hospitalized?
Because of her behaviors when they caught up with her and Yaris.
Who's they?
Because of when law enforcement found Yaris and Mrs. Pope.
Okay. All right. And what, where was Yaris located?
On the highway in Orlando, Florida. I'm not sure what highway.
So when the mother was taken into custody by law enforcement, they took Yaris with them? Is that your
Yes.
understanding?
That's my understanding.
Okay. And then when the mother was hospitalized, where did the Florida Department of Children and Family, I think it's called, get involved with Yaris?
I believe they took Yaris from the officer and contacted the grandparents.
All right. Do you know how Yaris got back to the state of Georgia after she was found at the hospital with the mother?
The office, I'm sorry, the Florida Department of Family Children Services case manager, CPS case manager met with Mr. and Mrs. Robinson to bring Yaris back to Georgia.
Now, at some point in time after the 28th of September, well, let me ask you this though. Did you actually have any conversations with Ms. Pope, the mother, on the 28th when she was allegedly hospitalized?
No,
All right. What about when was the next time that you spoke to Ms. Pope after the 28th of September?
October 10th.
Okay. And what, if anything, did the mother tell you about her hospitalization?
She did not.
She didn't disclose to you that she'd been hospitalized at all?
No,
All right. So your last conversation before October 10th was on September 27th. So that's roughly 2 weeks. Did the mother give you any explanation as to why she only made contact with you after approximately 2 weeks?
she explained to me, she told me that she was she was a trucker. I'm trying to think of the words she used. She was working, she was getting money. She was driving a big rig truck. She called it a certain type of truck, but I don't remember the name of it. And she was getting money to get her kids back. She got to make a living. So she said that she had got a truck, that she was working, and that she was on the West Coast.
Okay. Now, you've been the case manager for these children how long, Ms. Wilcox?
I've been the case manager for the Pope case since May, the beginning of May, the end of April, beginning of May
Of this year.
of 2023. Yes.
Okay. So you, during that time, have had an opportunity, I would assume, to speak with Ms. Pope either via the phone or in person.
Yes.
All right. Would you describe her behavior from the beginning of the 27th of September to when you had this conversation with her on October 10th as different from her behaviors that you had observed previously?
Yes.
Can you tell the court how those behaviors that you heard from Ms. Pope were different?
She speaks. She's highly excited when she speaks. She's cursing a lot. 1 minute she's cooperative and her mood changes in a flash of a moment where she becomes irate, cursing, making accusations. She speed talks, she over talks you. She don't let you get anything in as far as a rebuttal, reply. If you don't say anything to agree with her, then she is cursing you out or cursing me out. She told me she'll meet me basically threatened me, she'll meet me here at the defects office. She told me to watch myself, and her behavior has been totally different than what I've experienced since May.
When she told you to watch yourself, did you take that as a threat?
I did.
Do you believe or have concerns about the safety and well-being of Lyra and or Yaris if they were to be have any contact with the mother at this time?
Yes.
And what specific concerns do you have about their safety and well-being if they were to have contact with the mother, Ms. Pope, at this time?
Ms. Pope has made some concerning statements as far as her daughters during this time. She has told me, excuse my language, fuck her. She has told me that she wants other people to adopt them. She called Lyra a liar, that she has lied on her. And I also was informed that she might have, or she hit Lyra and pulled her hair while they were in Florida.
Lyra or Yaris?
I'm sorry, Yaris.
Let's say,
Yaris.
Lyra wasn't down there, I don't think.
All right, and you said she called Lyra a liar. Did you mean to say Yaris?
I meant to say Yaris. I apologize.
Okay. So I was going to ask you about that. Okay. All right. And is the department asking, for purposes of today's hearing, that the mother, Ms. Pope, not be allowed to pick up either Lyra or Yaris from the home of Mr. Pope?
Yes.
And is the department further asking that the mother's contact with the children, I guess Yaris is the only school-age child, is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you say it again? Can I have
Yaris is the only child that's in school right now, correct?
Yaris is in school, yes.
She's the only child that's in school. Lyra is not.
Correct.
Okay. But also that Ms. Pope, not the mother, not be allowed to pick up Yaris from school as well, correct?
Correct.
If the court were inclined to do that, in other words, make that ex parte order that it issued on Friday remain in place, would you have any objections to the mother having supervised visitation with the children?
Not at this time.
You would object, or you don't want there to be any visits?
Not at this time. No visits.
Okay. All right. One thing I did want to follow up on, the mother made a number of allegations against Mr. Pope, both to you apparently and to Ms. Chapman. Have you been able to substantiate or verify any of these claims that the mother has made about Mr. Pope, you know, kicking her, hitting her, being abusive towards her, anything like that?
No.
And do you have any current concerns about the children remaining in the home with Mr. Pope? Do
No.
you know where the mother is currently?
Currently, no.
Where did she tell you that the last time that you spoke with her, or where was the last time that, let me see if I can, where did she last say that she was?
LA.
Los Angeles, California?
Yes.
Okay. And then you saw some of the Instagrams that Ms. Chapman, I believe, forwarded to you, correct?
That she forwarded, yes.
Okay. And on one of those Instagrams that looked like it was from about a week ago, sometime in the beginning part of October, it looked like it was from, I'm going to mispronounce this, but it's Los Cruces, New Mexico. It looked like it was like the sort of geographical tag on there. Did the mother ever tell you she was in New Mexico?
No.
Okay. Did you tell the mother about this afternoon's hearing?
Via text message, via email. She sent me a new email. So I sent it to her old email and new email.
Okay. And then have you been able to make contact with the mother via phone since last week?
Yes.
All right. And did you discuss this hearing with her over the phone?
Recently, yes, today,
Okay. So she called you while we were having this hearing, right?
yes, several times.
Okay. And what did she tell you about that?
She told me that her attorney wasn't answering. She sent me a picture, a photo, something about she couldn't log on using Firefox. And then she cursed me out and told me, how can we have a hearing without her?
Ms. Schrock, you
It's
look
like
like
this.
two devices. I see you twice.
Were you through?
I am, Your Honor.
Ms. Wilcox, what is your objection to supervised visits for the mother?
At this time, I don't believe she has taken any medications, and her behaviors in front of her daughters, the way she has spoken or spoke of her daughters to me, I feel as though it would be an inconvenience right now until she has addressed her mental health, that she has contact with her daughters and the trauma that she provided to to Yaris while they was in Orlando.
Did she spend the night in a hospital in Florida?
Yes, from
How
my
many
understanding,
nights?
she did.
How many nights?
I'm unable to get that information due to her being an adult. So I'm not sure, Your Honor.
Well, you say you've been talking to her. Did you ask her?
Yes, I've asked her.
What did she say?
She's not manic. She's not erratic.
I'm asking, did you ask her how long she was in the hospital?
No, no,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Wilcox?
No, sir.
Just a couple. Was there any information that you received as to the behavior that the officer observed, or you said something about she was hospitalized because of her behavior per the officer. What did the officer say was the behavior?
That's all he could tell me. He told me because he couldn't verify who I was when I talked to him on the telephone, that I have to request a report.
All right then. And you said that it would be an inconvenience because you believe that she's not on her medication?
I can't verify right now that she's on her medication.
Okay. And do you know whether or not and you were not able to verify when she was released, whether or not they provided her with medication, correct?
Correct.
And I was on the phone with her while you were saying something about your attempted contact with her. I didn't hear what you were saying about your attempted contact with her. You have her new telephone number?
No, ma'am, she's calling me restricted.
Okay. But you were able to speak with her and she said that I wasn't answering?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you ask her whether or not she had the link?
Yes.
And did she tell you she had the link?
She couldn't get through to the link. I gave her the wrong link is what she told me.
Okay. So she was attempting to be present for the hearing?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, no, I don't believe there are going to be any other witnesses from the department today. I believe that's just going to be it.
Ms. Schrock or Ms. Evans-Ballard, do you have any witnesses?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, the court finds more than sufficient evidence to warrant the continuation of the ex parte modification that I did prior to the hearing, and now having heard the evidence, that will stay in place. The mother's authorized to have, once she has a mental health assessment and the results disclosed to the department, then she can resume supervised visits. They'd be supervised by DFAC staff only at prearranged times and places that are secure. And the department has 7 business days to file whatever pleadings it wants to come back to court and give notice to the parties what relief they're seeking in the way of modification, etc. Okay?
I would ask for one clarification, Your Honor. I would
Okay.
ask that the mother, you said the mother can have a mental health evaluation and then the results, and if then the mom can resume supervised visits. I would ask just that be based on if the evaluation says that she is not a risk to the children, that only then can the supervised visitation.
That's fine. Obviously, if something was in there like that, I would expect you to notify me and I would immediately change it, but you can add that language.
Okay. Ms. Wilcox, you'll need to get me an LAR as soon as you can, okay?
Yes.
All right.
I understand that you're ordering that the supervised visits take place after mental health assessment. I would just briefly ask the court if minimally she can have, if there could be supervised like video visits with the children. That's not going to place them in a place of harm, particularly if there's going to be a parent adult that would be present for that video conference call.
Well, the evidence that I've heard so far is that she's talking perhaps to the kids and definitely to the adults about putting them up for adoption. So I don't want her to talk to them at all or do anything with them until somebody tells me she's reasonably stable and is not going to inflict any more trauma to these kids. This is highly traumatic. And I'm sorry that she's obviously got mental health issues, but I mean, they've been made to be ping pong balls going back and forth and here and there and being squeezed by family members, perhaps, but at least by the parents against each other. And I want her to see her kids once I know she's reasonably stable, and I will make arrangements for that.
And with that, both Yaris and Lyra are to stay with the Pope, with Mr. Pope.
That was my understanding, is what defects asked for in the initial request. I'm not real happy about some of the stuff I've heard, but we haven't heard everything. So for right now, unless there's some evidence to the contrary, I'm going to leave it like the department had it, and the court had approved that arrangement with both parents. And now that one is having issues, I don't have anything that compels, although there's some.
I would just ask, and Mr. Polk may need to just put on the record that he agrees with this, but that in the event that mom calls him to try to speak with the children, that he not allow that until we have the mental health evaluation and so forth that we talked about.
So if you allow, can I talk?
You can. Are you in agreement with that?
I mean, yeah, I agree. She's been trying to call and talk to them every day. So I've been doing that for weeks now, denying her access to talk to Yaris and Lyra. And Yaris doesn't even want to talk to her mother. So I wouldn't even do that.
Weeks. How long has she been gone?
She's been gone for since September. She's like September 11th. She's been out of my house.
Okay. Well, you just tell her if she calls back, tell her that the judge said that you're not allowed to make them accessible to her until the mental health assessment has taken place and we get the results. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And then one other thing, Ms. Battle, if you should happen to get any contact information for your client, if you would pass that on to me to give to Ms. Wilcox, please.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Mr. Pope, I want to make sure we've got the mailing address to send and an email address to send stuff
You
to
got
you.
some from us?
Yeah, I get your mail. All the recent
Okay.
mail y'all sent, I've got.
What address do you have?
1045.
Okay, thank you. Thank y'all for your time. And
All right.
we'll send out the order as soon as I get it. Y'all take care.